Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Nat Walsh. Today we're going to have something a little bit different. So I've had this tissue box and honestly I've had it for years and years. We've got some Kaisercraft Crafternoon. I know, weird name, but that's what it is. And what I've done is probably because I had to buy the 12 by 12 pack. And I really loved it, but now I'm like, what are you going to do with this, Nat? This is not really you. So I cut it up into card front. It worked out well, but for this project, you don't really want to do that. Okay. So what I've done is I've gone through a couple of bits and pieces off camera and had a look and picked out some bits that I liked and didn't like, and just threw a couple of bits together. So with this, I have got all the ephemera pack and I've cut it all up. So I've got lots of bits and pieces, lots of little strips, lots of little squares. I've also cut the sheets of paper. Kaisercraft has cut aparts, so I've also done that. I think my problem was basically that this paper range was not quite something that I've worked with before, but it's okay. It's a pretty range. It's pretty colors. It's very, very sweet. I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't like it, but for card making, I just I didn't know. But we're going to make do. So this is the top, and I've cut it down to roughly around about 13.2 centimeters. And I've eyeballed it. I haven't done any measurements. We've cut a little hole in the top for our tissues. And what you need to do is basically a nail file and trim that sucker. Not trim it down, but you're going to file on a downward motion so you can use the edge of the tissue box as the edge, and it will help you give that nice round circle for your opening of your tissue box. So that's it. So it's a cheap way, but you don't want to go back and forth. You just want to go in a downward motion, lift down, that sort of thing. Get the point? We're going to make do with that. I've trimmed these pieces apart, and I'm just playing here with all the different die cuts to see how I want to place them, which ones I want to use, because the top I didn't have much of a plan at all. I'm going to raise these leaves up but glue the very bottom. That's why I'm pressing my fingers there. So most of this is going to be just raised up elements, parts, some raised up, some just sort of lowered. This one's going to be flat because there's going to be a couple of options, a couple of layers on the top of this. And this is pretty much, we're not doing too much more with this because I didn't want to go, because of the paper range, it's playful, it's fun. I didn't want to go shabby chic. So what I have done, I showed you in the very beginning, is using some white paint and just go around the edges. You could do another coat if you so wished. That wouldn't be a problem. You can color the whole thing, coat the whole thing. That's not your problem. You can see I've left obviously my inner bits, and I've left my middle of each panel plain because most of it's all going to be colored up. I've just turned this paper over. I'm really eyeballing this, but I did work it out. I did measure it. It's 13.2 centimeters tall. And the sides I haven't really changed at all. So I wanted to I'm a little bit low on the screen, I know, but I will push it up in a bit. I'm just trying to figure out here which ones I wanted for what, basically. that's pretty much what we're going to do for the whole panel. We're just going to play around with each panel and figure out which one we want to add. 2 are going to be this, well, strictly speaking, 3 are going to be saying that you're going to have some white showing on either side, and 2 sides are going to have what I'm doing here. So I'm covering the whole sheet. You can do the whole lot, and you will certainly use way more paper than I ended up using, but I wanted to have, I liked the look that it had, the strips, honestly, so that's what I went with. So this is not my normal video today, but I have been hanging around waiting to do this, and life just got in the way from one thing. This piece of paper, I had it one way that I was going to do, and then when I turned it over to put the glue on, I'm like, I like that better. So we're going to use the tape measure side of it. So this paper range is a little bit older because, as I said, I cut it all up because I really, really loved it, and then I sort of went, what am I going to do now? As you can see, lots of, like, you've got the pretty blue gingham, you've got just lots of pretty colours with it, frankly, and there's all the die cuts are like knitting, sewing, embroidery, painting, just different crafts. So we've raised this paintbrush up, and I'm not really paying attention. Let's be honest, I don't really knit. I do have knitting to do. I do have some wool, which will probably have to be sent off to my friend because I'm going to nah, I've had enough. I do the odd bit of sewing. I do cross stitch. I've done patchwork. I am what can I call it? I'm a universal crafter. Can we say that? I've done the diamond painting where it's the old, if you don't know anything about diamond painting, it's pretty much like the old paint by numbers, except you've got these little gems and you basically have peel off the backing off your picture, and you can get lots of different layers. They could be partial, so if you have a picture of what can we say, an owl, a picture of an owl, and the owl is all these little gems and the back of it is a photo. I've got one of those. That was my first one that I ever did. They're highly addictive and highly stress releasing. Unless you get one that isn't clearly marked, then it can be a little bit stressful. But you match up, you have your numbers which are in line with the old DMC, and then you have the gems that correspond. So that's how you figure out how to do it. So it's sort of like your cross stitch in the sense that you've got your chart of what symbol goes to where, and then you'll literally pick up, plonk down, pick up, plonk down. Get my point? So I've done quite a few bits and pieces. So this is a nice little range because it covers all of those elements. I like that. I craft so hard, I sweat glitter. Here was it a little bit tricky because I cut apart, as you could see, the die cut of the flowers with the leaves and that sort of thing. And so again, I raised up the tip of the leaf and glued down the bottom. Here I had to really go through and figure out where I wanted my foam dots. So I put it down, I feel where I might want to leave my finger there because I don't want to have a foam dot on another foam dot. So I'm putting them all in the center. And then we'll glue the outer bits. take all my little backing sheets off first, glue all my outer bits down, and we'll put him down. So cut up your die cuts. It's no biggie. Stick them behind things. You're not going to see all where I've cut it off the flower. You're not going to see any of it. And honestly, half of that you can't even see the flower. So I probably could have chopped the hem off too. So my next layer. Now my flowers did go over. So I would say, and it's no big deal because now it is all finished. I don't rotate it around on its edge, but make sure you do that one last. If you're going to have any elements that are going over the edge of the whatever you're doing, the box, the tissue box, the whatever, make sure you do those last. So we've got another panel here that's going to have the white on the sides of it. Sorry about that. And again, we're layering up. So it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, straightforward in the sense of you've just got to figure out where you want it. All the die cuts are all cut out. You've got to trim off some of the paper. The center bits there, the be brave, be creative, be kind, be thankful, be happy, be you. I've cut those. They're all in the paper pack. They're all in the die cut. Not die cut, but it's a sheet of cut aparts. So you've got the bigger ones and you've got the smaller ones. But you trim those off, trim those apart, and then that's it, you're done. So it's really, really handy. You've just got to do the thinking of which colour you're going to put where and how, and that's it. So it's pretty easygoing project for today. So yeah, it's not that hard because they've done everything for you except cut apart the cut aparts, and figure out which element you're going to go where. And you could more than easily cut up these panels. And I mean, as I said, I cut it into Australian card base sizes. So roughly we're talking about 14.4 by 10 centimeters. And that will cover with a bit of room on the sides for the, on the card base, and a little bit of backing. So there's not really much more that I can tell you about these things because I think I've gone through enough that it is so simple to use up die cuts in these situations, whether they're for your cards. If you want some quick and easy cards, go for a paper pad. Go for the die cuts and just have fun with them. Especially if you bought the 6x6 paper pad, or in Australia I think they're 6. They vary, but I think the Kaisercraft ones are 6x6. You could do the whole, as I said, the whole straight across the top. I really like this flower that was on those papers. So we're going to use, I think this was our last panel. We're going to use that, but we're going to do a little bit different, make it look a bit different, that we've put the smaller panel, instead of being behind, we're going to have it sitting on front. Being creative is not a hobby, it's a way of life. It's true, isn't it? I get grumpy if I don't craft, if I don't do something creative, if I don't sit at my desk, whether it's doing a blog post, even though that's not really creative, shall we say. It might be sitting at my colouring something, or sometimes it's just organising because, I'm a bit that way. I wanted to put something else. I wanted to play around. So we're going to play around with some of the other die cuts I've gone through. So you've got a lot of doilies. You've got the flowers. You've got the crafty sort of wool paint. You've got over on the far right, you've got a lot of sentiments, that like those labels. But I decided that was it. I wasn't going to do it. It just didn't really work. Having a look through our strips again. Once again, I've got this paper that has the measuring tape sort of thing on it, but it doesn't go the whole length. So trim it off. No one's going to know that you've got a gap between the top and the bottom. So if you're not a subscriber, if it's the first time you're catching one of my videos, thank you so much. It would be an honor if you could subscribe to me, and if you hit that little bell, it will notify you whenever I upload a video, and you'll get to see it, one of the first to see it. Because sometimes I throw it over to some Facebook pages, and I get really busy during the day, and I usually send the post out at 10 a.m. in the morning, Australian time, although today is a bit late. Anyway, and sometimes I don't post them onto web pages or Facebook groups, I should say, until later on in the day. So if you ring that bell, you'll get to see it before everyone else does. So I'm playing around with my paintbrush here, and I decided I needed to have another paint palette because it was just a little bit not quite right. And so again, we've raised them all up because we were raising up everything under the sun. But I wanted that little bit of dimension. Excuse my flying knife there. For some reason, I threw it across the table. Don't do that. That could be dangerous, but anyway. So I hope you like this video. Down below in the description box we'll have a link over to my blog. Hopefully I'll get that done, and I really do hope you have a lovely weekend. Certainly here in Melbourne it looks quite nice, and just a quick little view of all the bits and pieces, all the layers. I'm only going to post up a couple of the photos. But over on the blog we'll have all 5 different sides to it. So have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.